Hello, thank you very much. Going to stay here with us a little bit and talk about movies and books and music because you're like a Da Vinci, like you've done pretty much
Yeah.
everything, right? Uh, so maybe for those who are watching this and know about Glenn for having not the nice record of the smallest opening weekend gross kind of thing.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking for about 6 hours. I take it back. For probably about 24 hours, it was heartbreaking until all these articles all around the world started popping up about it. And it's like, oh, hey, this is turning out all right.
But it's just the tiny little bit of the iceberg. Was when we started researching about you, we, as I said, we figured out like you're into so many things, and that's pretty amazing. And I hope this interview helps people to know there is a lot more than that record there, right? So I guess we kind of started talking about To Die Is Hard.
Mhm.
That's kind of your first like actual movie, even though you did some short movies before that.
I had been writing film scripts for a decade, and I couldn't get anyone to even look at them, let alone to look at them and say, no, thank you. And so I had coffee one day with a guy. I was living in Denver at the time, and he had worked at Disney for years. And we had crossed paths. So we were chatting about that. And he said, no one's going to read your scripts in Hollywood unless they know who you are or you have an in at the production company or studio. He said, you need to make your own films. Boy, it was only maybe 3 months later we made our first short film, Bad Movies, Good Showers, and Civil Engineers. I just kind of figured, well, it's not brain surgery. I can figure this out. Yeah, what happened was we decided to do a sketch comedy TV show. And so I wrote, I don't know, like 50, 60 sketches. We had just piles of material, and we shot a ton of stuff, hoping to edit it down to like a really good 22 minutes or so to pitch to networks. And in one of the sketches, I played a cocky English professor, who's protecting. It was just ridiculous. It was a really stupid sketch. But Alan Green, who's my bandmate in Norwegian Soft Kitten, we did To Die Is Hard together, and he edited The Worst Movie Ever. He said, that character where you play that really stupid, cocky English professor, he said, I think there's a film there based around that guy. And so, yeah, well, let me think about it. So for about a week, I just jotted down notes, what could happen. I had seen the movie Die Hard recently, and I thought, with a little tweaking, that goes from being, a super famous action film to just a really moronic comedy action film or action comedy. And so I made notes for about a week, and then I took maybe another week and wrote the script. And I shared it with Alan. He had a couple bits of feedback for some things to tweak, and we were ready to go. I put together a cast and crew. We shot it only maybe 6 or 8 weeks after I finished the script.
Wow.
And then Alan got the whole thing edited in 3 or 4 months. So from the time Alan first said, why don't you make a film around that character, to the finished edit it was like 5.5 months, I think it was. Nick Falls was our sound guy. I'd worked with Nick on Therapissed, and that was our crew, Alan and Nick, because Alan had a great Steadicam rig where he could, the running scenes, he was running right behind us or with us. And, Nick, what we do with all our films for the microphone, I have a decent microphone, but I don't have a boom. So we always tape it to the end of a golf club so we can reach it out. And so Nick's running around with this golf club with a microphone on it. It got the job done. And I have cast and crew, or cast members especially, make suggestions about their characters. And especially once I've worked with someone on a project or two, and I really trust them. For example, Andrea Raybould, she's in our film Evil Intent. I think that was the first like thriller/horror film we did, and Andrea's fantastic. And she was in Bad Movies, Good Showers, and Civil Engineers. And so I'd worked with her multiple times, and she plays one of the lead roles in our newest horror film, Paralyzed with Fear, that stars Kane Hodder from the Friday the 13th films. And at one point before one of Andrea's scenes, we're setting up, the equipment and all. And she said, "Hey, Glenn, what if my character said this?" And she had like 3 different lines within the scene. And she said, "What if she says that?" I said, "That is a lot better than what I wrote. Yes, say those lines." And it worked out beautifully. So, yeah, I've been fortunate to work with some really talented people who provide a whole lot of insights as we're shooting the films. And I pick fun people to work with. I'm in Indiana right now with Norwegian Soft Kitten. My bandmate Alan lives in LA. And so that's where we have LA on there. When people think of music, they don't typically think of Indiana. So we go with Alan's home address for Norwegian Soft Kitten.
And how do you do? How do you rehearse? How do you record your songs? How do you do that?
Well, we actually got together a while back in Denver. We went to a cabin up in the mountains where we recorded Sunshine on Lava. Don't think I can get all of my bills paid. It's been 8 months since I was laid. Here in Indiana, it's kind of hard to make films. I have shot a couple here. We shot Midget Zombie Takeover years ago when I was back for a little while. We did Poetry Slammed, which I shot with mostly all Ohio people. And that came out a couple years ago. And now we have really close to the final edit, The Death of Ivan Nussbaum, which is a comedy where I was able to get Pete Buchbauer, who's a stand-up comic from LA who I've known for years. He actually fell in love with The Worst Movie Ever and got hold of me through that years ago. And so I brought him in from LA to play the lead role of Ivan Nussbaum in that film. That one should be ready, I don't know, probably for early 2021. But I don't have any plans to make any other films right now. That I am focusing a lot more on the music at this point.
How is your writing process?
Yeah, typically I'll have an idea and see if I can add more thoughts to it. For example, with Paralyzed with Fear, I was watching a lot of paranormal shows for a while. And most of them, okay, whatever. But every now and then I'd see something like, wow, that's kind of interesting. And would that work in a film? And so I started watching a lot of paranormal shows and trying to figure out the best parts of them, how I could bring them together. So that's where that came from. The Worst Movie Ever, I watch films, and one day I was watching a film. I'm like, that is one of the worst pieces of dialogue I have ever seen. And I thought, every now and then I'll say, that is like the worst plot twist ever or the worst casting ever. I thought, I'm just going to start making mental notes of all the worst things I notice in films, regardless of genre or whatever it is. And then I'm going to cram all the worst things I've ever seen all into one film. So that's how The Worst Movie Ever came about. And that's where, because what our tagline is, it might be the worst movie ever, but it's the best sci-fi, horror, comedy, drama, action, musical you've ever seen, because I brought in the worst of all those genres.
Well, you're a writer as well, and you wrote your first novel last year. Well, it was published last year at least. I don't know if you wrote it earlier than that. And I started reading it, by the way, because I thought the topic was very interesting. It's set in Indiana, right, as well?
Yep.
It's a 1950s kid who moves within Indiana. Rural area. He's never seen a black person before in his life, right? So I thought, and especially in these days, right, with all this racial tension in the country, how much of this novel is autobiographical? Well, I guess the setting it is for sure, right? But the story, what part of the story is related somehow to you personally?
And it started as a short story back in the mid 1990s. And I wrote a short story version of the idea of this young white boy meeting an older African-American man in a rural setting. It's the 1950s. And eventually I thought, I think this would make a good screenplay. And so I expanded it from like a 3,000 word short story to, 16, 17,000 word screenplay. And I shared it with Alan, and he just loved it. And we were trying to figure out a way we might be able to shoot the film in Denver, but we've figured it would, most of our films we've made for approximately $2,000. When I brought in Joe Bob Briggs for The Ghost of Johnson Woods or Kane Hodder, we had to spend certainly more than that. But Alan and I figured probably an absolute minimum of $20,000 to shoot the film, and probably realistically more like $50,000. And we just didn't have that money at our disposal. And people don't just, oh, here's a check for $25,000, go make a film. At least not in Denver, they don't do that. And so we sat on it for quite a while. And then eventually, after a few years, I thought, there were so many scenes I wanted to include in the screenplay that I left out because, I didn't want a 200-page screenplay. So I took a few months and just started adding in all those scenes, but doing it in book form. And it came out to about 50,000, I guess about 45,000 words, about the same length as The Great Gatsby, a shorter novel. It's not so much autobiographical as it's biographical about people I know. For example, my mom grew up in the 1930s in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and she told me the story of one day getting on a trolley with her mom, my grandmother, and there was an African-American man on the trolley. And my mom was like 7 years old at the time, and she had never seen a black man before. And she says she's reaching up and yanking on grandma's dress, like, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Is he going to die? Does he have cancer or something? And no, some people are just, that's their skin color. And so that is, a tale from my mother, or the main character of Benjamin, the elderly African-American man. He's based a lot on my grandfather, who was a very kind, patient person who I always saw as very wise. I pulled together a lot of different things from extended family from, over the last 100 years almost, and incorporated that in there.
I think that in your movies, even if they could be seen as something, of course, fun to watch and kind of light, but there are some messages there. Like I've seen some religion there, some allusions to religion in many movies. Well, in this one, there's just Jesus Christ himself. When someone wonders what will Jesus do, with the robot, and you see him like running here, right? And then there's what I was saying about the Johnson Boots, where it says, I have 100 viewers on YouTube. And there's a smart thought there saying, well, some of them are like people who click and say, what the fuck is this? So that leads us to 2 people probably that actually watch what you...
Where Hayden is telling Goose, yeah, you really have 2 viewers for your, video, that you just keep watching it yourself. And so,
yeah, well, it talks about one of the topics we could say of the movie is what are you able to do, what you're willing to do actually to become famous somehow, right? Floating there, because we see a lot of people doing crazy stuff and selling their souls for whatever, doing whatever it takes just to get some viewers somewhere.
Yeah, and it used to be people wanted to be famous because they accomplished something awesome. I was an astronaut, or I was president or something. You did something fantastic to become well known. And now it's kind of like, well, how stupid can I be, to get famous? Or, the Andy Warhol 15 minutes of fame. And of course, I don't know. I made the worst movie ever. Maybe that was my attempt for 15 minutes of fame. Just do something stupid. I was not too dissuaded by the 1 ticket sale for $11.
Is it true? Is it true? I mean, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful legend attached to that movie. But is it true that you never, ever knew who was the person who watched the movie? Or is just kind of, it's kind of the, legend you want to grow with the movie?
Yeah, we did never figure it out because Christine Mascolo, who's in the film, she took some photos and posted them on Facebook that she was in LA at the time, and she went in front of the theater earlier in the day and had someone take some pictures of her, and she's like, oh, a film I'm in is going to show here tonight. But she wasn't the one who saw it, and no one from her family went to see it. Why, Christine? Why didn't you and your family go see it? The theater tried to figure out who it was, because they wanted to make something of this when they figured out it was a new worst opening weekend ever. And so they were asking around and all. We were posting on social media, seeing if anyone would step forward, but no one ever, stepped forward. I don't know if they probably didn't hear about it. I kind of like to think they heard about it and like, I don't want to fess up that I was the one who went there. Well, I'm like really appreciative, like Harrison Astroff at Late Flicks. He's helped distribute a number of our films, get them on Amazon Prime. Danny Torres at MCTV Continuum has had Midget Zombie Takeover and The Worst Movie Ever, getting those out there. And yeah, where it's fun and makes it worthwhile is Midget Zombie Takeover is now on Tubi TV. which is free. Okay, I can get it on my Roku system and all. And so, you know, Danny sent me a few bucks recently. Hey, some people have been watching it on Tubi TV. But I got an email from a woman named Teresa from Denver, and she used to have a little DVD company or media company, and I would always go to her to try to support a small local business to burn all our DVD screeners and things like that. So I got to know Teresa really well, and she was very cool and great at her job. Well, she sent me, we're Facebook friends, and I haven't seen her in years and years since I've been in Indiana, but she sent me a message through Facebook just this past week. And she said she was picking up her 18-year-old son from school. And he started saying, like, Mom, my friends and I, you know, we watched this super awesome movie. It was on Tubi TV and oh, it was so awesome. He's talking about it. And she said, what was the name of that film? He said, Midget Zombie Takeover. And she said, I know that guy. He's like, whatever. And she said, I pulled the car over, stopped the car, pulled, you know, your Facebook profile up and see, we're friends. She said, now I'm the coolest mom on the planet in his eyes.
Your book, I forget the name, the guide, I have it here.
Oh, the Independent Filmmakers
The Independent
Guide?
Filmmakers Handbook. Yeah. I didn't get it yet. I ordered it, but I didn't get it yet.
Oh, thanks.
You know, because when you see people, you know, being passionate and, you know, making movies, and you are like, I want to know how these guys do it. Until I get the book, can you give me some tips about how to make your own $2,000 movie? Just
Sure.
a couple of things.
Yeah, keep it simple. I typically try to limit the number of cast members, the number of locations, the number of crew members I'll need. Certainly with To Die Is Hard, we were jumping around a bigger cast than normal, and with The Worst Movie Ever. But like with Evil Intent, we had 5 total cast members, and we shot 90% of it all in one house, using different parts of the houses for different dwellings. And then in my apartment, Therapissed, we shot, you know, almost all of it. Well, all of it was shot in one house and my apartment. So we keep the locations down, make very detailed shooting schedules. I always have every scene exactly in order, how we're going to shoot it, who's in that scene, what props are needed, and the locations. We group locations together, we group cast members together, and then you can move very quickly from scene to scene. Now, the drawback is, you know, we've shot scenes in whole films in as little as one weekend. Like The Worst Movie Ever, we shot in one weekend. Typically, we'll take either like a 3 or 4 day weekend or maybe 2 weekends to shoot a film. So about the most we do is 4 days of shooting. The drawback to that, and you got to realize that if you're making a small budget film, you're going to have those glitches that end up in the film. For example, in Midget Zombie Takeover, there are a couple times in the film where someone, you know, bobbled their line a little bit, but because we're moving so quickly, a lot of times we only shoot each scene twice. And sometimes then that's the best take. You know, we don't have time. I'll tell people, you know, in Hollywood, they say, let's get 1 page of script shot per day, and then we're doing all right. We shoot as many as 40 or 50 pages of script in a day. Wow. So we just keep moving. And that's why I tell people, just keep moving, keep laughing. I've had so many cast members say that they were on a shoot where it was lots of yelling, it was really tense and all. You know, I'm paying these people $50 to be in the film. I have no right to yell at them. You know, they're doing me a favor for what I'm paying. If I was giving them $8 million to show up for a weekend, well, okay, I might be a little more stern. But if you're getting $50 for a weekend, you know, I always pay the crew members more because they have to be there the whole time. Yeah, I'm not paying you enough to be mad at you, okay? Just show up and do the best you can. And yeah, if you're making a film, just keep it happy, keep it light. Realize everyone wants a good film to come out of it, you know, and have fun with it.
Sounds great. By the way, if you ever need a Hispanic actor,
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Oh.
No, I mean, yeah, of course, anything. That would be fun just to see live how that works and see you in action. I would love to see that. Well, thank you very much for your time. I don't know, we've been talking for more than an hour. And it looks like we could keep going like forever. Such a interesting things you have told us. I hope this is not the last conversation we have. Let us know where your next movie is out. You said beginning of 2021,
Yeah,
and maybe we can talk a little bit more about it.
that'd be awesome. I really appreciate you having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you. Have a
You're
great
welcome.
day.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.